All right, welcome to Season 6, Episode 3, also known as Episode 166 of the Retro Game Club podcast. I'm Hugh, and joining me is someone who will be moving to Germany to run their railroad IT department, Rob.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen or heard, there is a job opening, at a railroad, I don't know what you would call it, I guess train station group, I don't know, business that uses Windows 3.1 or 3.0 or 3.11 for workgroup something to run, I think it's like their signage, maybe? Something like that.
I don't know what they're doing. I just know that, like, Germany has, like, the best labor laws in the world, so it seems like you can get a job there running a Windows 3.11, it's his display board for almost all of Germany. It seems like you're going to have that job forever, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever worked for, like, a company, like a multinational company, but if you do, you will get emails from HR from time to time. And if the first sentence of that email is like, this message applies to all employees not in Germany, you know it's bad news. you know, so it's some bad HR thing. You know?
Yeah.
Because it seems like any way they want to mess with you in any other country in the world, you can't get away with the same thing in Germany. That's all I've learned.
Nice. Well, what have you been up to?
Oh, what have I been up to? If I opened, you know what? All my stuff is responses to things you're talking about. The only thing I brought up, which I think you added to the news, was I just saw that the original PC-88 version of Ys 1 is coming to the Switch in a couple days of when we're recording. So it's coming out on the 15th, February 15th. Store listing is $6.49, which seems about right for a fairly old game that you can probably beat in like 4 hours. The screen, I've never played the PC-88 version. I have played the DOS version, which is not bad, really. It's, the Master System's version's a little better. The TurboGrafx version's a lot better.
Yeah, the whole point of Ys for me, not the whole point, but a big point is the music. So I don't know if I'll be getting this one. Yeah,
it's the original soundtrack as Yuzo Koshiro intended it to sound, I guess. This was in the first cut, so I'm curious about the DOS version. Does not sound great, but no. I don't really know the music capabilities between DOS and PC-88.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Maybe I'll check out a video first.
Yeah. So why don't you go into your stuff? You got more interesting things to talk about than me.
Yeah, first thing is, you mentioned that when you turn 50 that you're likely retiring from podcasting, and we got a ton of emails about it. So I just wanted to tell people that, like, I do plan on to keep podcasting, whether it's this podcast, in a different form or a whole different podcast. I have some ideas, but we'll know more in a year. Mm-hmm. I would likely be doing that podcast from Australia because I could finally announce that I am intending to move to Australia. We haven't gotten the final paperwork yet, so the government could still say, no, thank you. Stay out.
Yeah, but you've done the difficult part already in terms of like the visa or whatever, the work qualification stuff. I don't know how that works.
In fact, 2 different visas. So whichever one comes in first, hopefully we'll know this week. But, we've recorded a ton of actually really fun, some of my favorite episodes we've ever recorded over the past few weeks. We actually didn't really take a break this year because, while I'm moving, I'm literally selling my house and my family's selling all of our things so we could move there and, start a new life there with new stuff. It's almost cheaper just to buy new stuff there than to move everything.
Well, yeah.
So while we're taking care of that, I'll probably need a few weeks off from recording. So we'll have those extra episodes.
Yeah. It's kind of the amazing thing for me is I guess I never really thought about this. So when I look at like old photos, I'll be like, oh, the furniture we had in Europe was also the furniture we had in like our first house. I'm like, oh, right, the military paid for all that.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
They probably threw it in the back of like whatever military plane.
Yeah. Like, oh, right, we didn't have to pay to move that stuff. International move is, local move is extremely expensive.
Yeah, it's going to be stupid, just stupid. And Australia is a more expensive place to live than Detroit. I mean, almost anywhere is a more expensive place to live than Detroit, but where we're moving is like top 3 most expensive places in the world. So it's gonna be some life changes there for sure. I think that's why over the past year I've been really filling out my retro collection.
Just a time to move, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. People aren't gonna ship stuff there and all that stuff.
But stuff like the PC-88, you might have an easier time getting there because I'm going to be curious to see if stuff from Japan is more common in Australia than it is in the US because of the proximity.
Not really, because it's still the whole PAL NTSC thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on PAL there, so Japanese stuff's actually, I think, more popular here.
Okay.
What else other than that? So I'll keep everyone updated as that happens. And let's see, I uploaded our podcast to archive.org. And so what I did is I created a Python script that downloaded all of our MP3 files from our from our podcast hoster. And then it uploaded them all to archive.org. And so there was really no way to create a single link for those because I don't have access to create a collection. But if you search for Retro Game Club, we do come up pretty instantly. Also, Nerd Noise Radio comes up because they reference us in show notes. And a really annoying part is archive.org is supposed to scan the meta of audio files, which ours are embedded. And you know what? I uploaded it without doing any data scrubbing, and it didn't work very well. So I updated the Python script to look at the meta in each MP3 and then update the files with... so it uploads the file, and then the next part after it says, this file's been uploaded, here's the ID for it. And then I say, okay, with that ID, update the, title with the title from the podcast and update the description with the show notes. And it came back as a success every time, and it didn't seem to work. It seemed to keep the poorly scraped details. So,
yes,
not cool. I don't know, archive.org seems like it's kind of, I don't know, held together with duct tape. Like, downloading is slow, uploading is slow, kind of everything on it is slow. They're definitely not caching and, I don't know, have a good edge on them, I guess.
Yeah, that would be expensive, though, for the volume of data they move around.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They're probably doing the best they can. It's all, they're pretty much a library. It's all donations, so. But I still complain anyway.
Yeah, so about this totally free service that charges you nothing.
Yeah, which I use on a daily basis.
Right.
Yeah, remember we talked about Timber last episode?
Yeah, Timber.
I apparently had not heard of it. Well, when you announced that you might be retiring in about a year, I was like, I should go through and make sure I start doing the games I wanted to do. So I went back through my old list I created years ago, and Timber is one of the games I always wanted to play in this podcast. So there you go.
Yeah. So that was my other note. And by the way, you can take the word might out of that sentence. I've already mentally checked out completely. So you mentioned Timber. Like I have a list. I have a spreadsheet. I think you have a copy of it. Or it's the same spreadsheet probably that we have in the Google Drive.
Yeah.
And I had a list of like games that I thought I would talk about at some point. And I went through the list. I'm like, some of these are just games I never want to play in my entire life again. Mm-hmm. And others are like, 80-hour RPGs. I'm like, well, I'm certainly not going to pick an 80-hour RPG to try and talk about over a 2-week period. So I just kind of cut that list down to like the ones I thought I was going to talk about. And then force rank them from what I most want to talk about to what I least want to talk about, the last game on that list is Spy versus Spy, which I don't think I ever want to play again.
It's not a good game.
I think this was something I rented one weekend and enjoyed, but maybe it's not any more fun than one weekend. I don't know.
You kind of need two people for it to play it as intended.
Yeah. And if I don't get to talk about Spy versus Spy, I will not be heartbroken.
Yeah.
So
yes.
It's bottom of the list. But going forward, the last however many Game Club picks I make will be from this list in the order that I want to talk about them. So later in the episode, the first one will come up. I think people will probably be surprised that I put this game first.
I wasn't, but I think I know you a little bit better than some people.
Yeah. Well, it is a game I actually do want to play again. Mm-hmm. I legitimately want to play this game again. But you'll find out about it in like 30 minutes.
And then remember that game I talked about that I really liked that I was playing on Steam, Sunset Overdrive?
Yeah.
Well, that game was developed by Insomniac, who was recently hacked, and a bunch of their corporate data was stolen. And part of that data was that, that game cost $40 million to make, and they made a profit of about $567 on it.
That's not. They sold 1.9 million copies.
Oh,
according to that sheet.
It's so weird. Yeah. This industry is pretty messed up.
I mean, that's not even... I didn't do the $600 divided by 1.9 million, but you're talking about, fractions of a penny per sale of profit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's too bad. I think if you like if you think you would like a goofier GTA type game, mm-hmm. I highly recommend this game. It is really fun. So, and it's pretty cheap now. So, this isn't in my notes, but I was thinking about this the other day. Speaking of more modern games, Hugh, if there's one thing you could do for me before you retire from podcasting.
From podcasting. I'm retiring. I got another 30 years of working at least.
Yeah. Because of this move to Australia, I've pretty much resigned that I will never be able to retire. Well, play Nier Automata, because I think I've decided that it's my all-time favorite game.
Okay.
And I'd like to talk to you about it. That's all.
Okay.
And I think you'd really like it, actually.
Yeah, there was just a concert for that in Chicago recently.
The music is incredible in it, so that is cool.
Yeah, I'd have to find a copy and do all that stuff. Now, on the flip side, I have a kid that, my oldest kid is talking about is finishing college very soon. That's actually part of my thing. So she's finishing college really soon, but she's already talking about grad school. So I will be working until I'm at least dead.
Yes.
And maybe a few years after that. So we will see.
And
I could have her start life with crippling levels of student debt. I don't know what to do
for the rest of her life. Yeah.
Both seem like good options.
And then the last thing in my very long notes are, our recording schedule's been off. Where it's like we record an episode and then it's a long time before we record again or even release the episode. So we're caught back up on that now. So that's why there's so many notes. But since we recorded last, the Mac had turned 40. And I was just wondering if you had any quick memories or thoughts on the Macintosh computer.
Yeah, I've barely used an original Macintosh. Outside of seeing a demo in a store or at Midwest Gaming Classic, something like that. I've never owned one. I probably would have bought one if I had money back then. Mm-hmm. I was a big Apple II fan, and if I had, $2,000 sitting around, that seems like something I would have really enjoyed. But no, I never played a couple games. That's about it. I think they look nice. I also remember working in a software store around that time, and the Mac section just dwindling and dwindling over time. It's like, well, there's a rack of Mac software, and now there's an end cap, and now there's a shelf, and now this bottom corner of the store has the one Mac product we sell. And Mac owners kind of getting increasingly frustrated with the lack of software available for it.
Yeah, for the longest time, it only had like a 2% penetration compared to the PC, DOS, and Windows.
Man, that would have been such if there's anything in life I could do over, it would be buying Apple stock during that era. When they were just 2% of the market.
When I wanted to buy my first stock ever, that was in 2001, and so I created an Ameritrade or whatever account, and I deposited the money. You know, it was like $2,000, $3,000 or something.
Yeah.
And I bought the stock, and then the next day 9/11 happened. And that was my intro into stock trading. I bought it at 60. Anyway, when all that came back up, you know, and all the stocks crashed, luckily I forgot to hit the submit button or something like that, and it never bought the stock.
Okay.
And so I lucked out.
But you kind of didn't, though, because if you had bought Apple stock in 2001 at $60 and held it till today, right, you'd probably be in pretty good shape.
No, exactly. So I didn't lose the money because I tried to buy it it was at like 60 something. When it came back up, it was at 16. And so I would have, I was spooked, so I didn't buy it. But at least I didn't lose that money. But yeah, I also probably would have been a millionaire or something. Probably make like 50 grand or, you know, something like that. But that did not happen. So, but yeah, I wish I would have at that point said like, oh, 16, this seems like a good deal.
You said it was 16. There's a website here. If you had invested in Apple. So how much were you going to invest?
Call it $3,000.
$3,000. That's the default value on this site, believe it or not. $3,000. And that was 23 years ago?
Yeah, in 2000. Well, yeah, in September 2001.
You don't want to see this number.
Oh no, what is it?
$616,000.
Oh man. Well, at least I didn't lose my $3,000, right?
At least you didn't. Yeah. So you're only down $613,000 if you think about it that way.
Yes. Wow.
Now again, if I had like invested $100, what would I say, 94? So it's 30 years ago. That would be worth $36,000 today. Like 30 years ago, $100 is the most I could have mustered. Right?
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, that's a tremendous return.
Yeah, in 2000, I moved back in with my parents for a little bit. 2001, and was just like saving money, you know.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that. Yeah, I mean, my memory of the Mac is really, you know, my uncle got a Mac right when it came out. He had an Apple IIe or whatever, the Apple IIc maybe. And I was not impressed at all. It seemed like a step backwards, you know, the tiny black and white display. And so in 1986, my family got a 2GS, and it just seems so much better, even with the slower processor. And, that's where I got into the King's Quest games and all that stuff. And, you know, the 2GS is pretty much a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo. And my aunt ran a print shop back then, and she was closing it in 1994, which was, I mean, bad for her, but annoying for me because I was the only one of her nephews that didn't get to work there. I just had turned working age. She sold me her favorite Mac for $200. And that Mac happened to be the 2CI with 12 mega RAM, which that Mac is insane. Just an insane. It was the best Mac at the time. And I had no idea. I was playing, like a King's Quest 6 on it. And in 2000, I bought the dual 500 megahertz G4. Again, I had just moved back in with my parents, so I had some money, with the Silicon Graphics flat screen monitor that I could use for recording some music. And it was faster than any other desktop I could find. And at work, I actually had a Silicon Graphics desktop, and this just blew it out of the water. So, I don't know. I've always loved Linux. I was a Mac boy for a long time, but when Windows 10 came out with WSL2, I switched from Mac to PC because I have Linux right there. But now I kind of don't like any operating system. They all suck.
Yeah, they're all bad. I mean, I have Windows 11 on my work computer, and It is just awful. I don't know how Microsoft managed to bungle Windows so badly, because Windows 7 I thought was really, really good. And I think it's been a steady decline since Windows 7.
What don't you like about Windows 11?
Kind of, I would describe it as usability in general. It's very hard to find what I'm looking for on Windows 11. And, you know, it's this weird, like you go to the start menu, you go to type of program name, like I want to find Excel. But it's like, you're not getting Excel, you're getting like Bing search results for things that might contain the word Excel. And you get like weird, there's constant pop-ups. I'm trying to get to 0 notifications in my life. Like anything I have that has notifications, I'm turning it off. Because I just have too much going on. And Windows 11 is just a nonstop stream of random things popping up.
Oh, the best is every few weeks, if you didn't set up your OneDrive, it's like, you didn't finish setting up and securing your Windows. Log in with your Windows ID. Like, I will never have that. Please stop.
Yeah, they just, my work at least disabled that one, because I don't get that. But it's just a constant barrage of notifications and updates and weird behaviors. And for whatever reason, it thinks I need to have like breaking news headlines, like just randomly show up in the middle of the day. Like I can't figure out how to turn that off.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just working and it'll be like breaking news, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not even news. Go away, Microsoft.
Yeah.
I don't want to know any of this. And then, you know, Ubuntu is fine, except it's kind of turning into what I would call it all update OS, where pretty much all I do on Ubuntu is update it. And I thought about making a Linux distro where literally the only thing you do is run updates. Because that's sort of what it's turning into.
Yeah, I think I'm actually switching to Manjaro or just Arch because it's a rolling release. Because in Ubuntu and Debian and, you know, any Red Hat alternative, yes, you run updates all the time, but also after a while those updates stop and you have to do a dist up.
Dist up, yeah.
And that has never worked. Like, something's always been wrong every time I've done that. So I really just want to go to the rolling release of Arch, because at least you don't run into that part.
Yeah, one of the happiest days of my life was when my former Chromebook sent me a message saying it was no longer going to receive updates.
Like, finally.
Yes. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is why I still like old school games.
Yeah.
For them, it's definitely less. Old school games are definitely less annoying than modern systems. Having just barely started the PlayStation 5, I'm already like, oh right, I have to do a lot of updates and random times during. Like, there's this setting called Do Not Disturb on the PlayStation 5, but you have to turn that on every time you come out of rest mode, because it assumes you always want to be disturbed, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that. So it's like you're playing a game and then suddenly it's like, trophy, you walked 500 feet or whatever. I'm like, I do turn this off. Permanently turn it off.
So should we, you think we should podcast?
Yeah, so what's going on here? Atari 400 Mini. This is the coolest looking device that I will never buy.
It is pretty neat looking.
Yeah. But it's $100, and I don't, I bought like the Commodore 64 clone.
Oh, you did?
Because it has like, a while ago, and then I bought it sometime during quarantine because I thought I'd be bored enough to learn to do Commodore 64 programming. Then I didn't. So I still might. I'm not getting rid of it. But, that has a keyboard that you can like type on and write programs if you were so inclined. This is not a functional keyboard. This is a decorative keyboard. So, like, maybe I would be interested in this for $100 if I could also program on it.
But, yeah.
But that's not, you can't program on this. I mean, I could program in an Atari 400 emulator and then load my program onto this thing, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, these keyboards always sucked, but I see your point, is why even have the sticker of the keyboard there?
Right. And if you're playing games, like the other reason I got the Commodore thing is because I do enjoy the old Infocom games. And you need a real keyboard to play those. And I can't recall, we just talked about this recently. I can't recall. They must have had Infocom games on the Atari 400. But they've not. They had other text adventure games. And how are you going to play those on this thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at that point, just emulate on whatever computer you're on.
Yeah.
Instead of having a second keyboard there.
Yeah, it looks really cool, but it's yeah, without a working keyboard, this isn't going to be for me.
Yeah. Does it have Atari 9-pin ports? I think
it uses USB ports.
Yeah, it's just USB. Yeah, so you can't plug in an original Atari thing.
So ironically, you could possibly plug in a USB keyboard.
Yeah.
Plug a USB keyboard into this thing that has a cosmetic keyboard.
And then other tiny computer news. Adafruit designs Raspberry Pi Pico floppy drive emulator. So, yeah, this is a hat that it really emulates floppies, kind of like the, like the Apple floppy emulators do, where, yeah, you could put a floppy in or you could put an SD card in, and it has a screen and a button. So it'll tell you what file is loaded as the current floppy, and you hit the button and it goes to the next file, which is kind of like, swapping floppies. So, yeah, kind of cool if you need something like that. Do you know the difference between the Super Nintendo chips?
No.
Okay, well, apparently there are two variants of the Super Nintendo video chip. I guess that'd be the PPU, maybe, but there's the 1 chip and the 2 chip. And it's 2 weeks ago where I read this article, so I'm not getting this 100% right, but somebody fixed one of those variants, the 2 chip. I guess it was blurrier than the other variant, and now it isn't if you do this fix. So there you go.
Is this a thing that a normal person would notice? When I say normal, I mean average.
I think it's one of those things where if it's side by side, you notice it. But, when I was growing up, I didn't notice that an entire arcade port was, missing assets. So, because you don't have it side by side, so you don't remember everything else, every single thing you saw in the arcade. Yeah. So, yeah. But, still pretty cool. It only took them 33 years to fix that. And more Nintendo stuff. Some dude built an adapter to use the Power Glove on a Nintendo 64. Really, you could use any NES, controller or anything that plugged into that. But the Power Glove does work. So if you ever wanted to play Mario 64 with your Power Glove, there you go.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing that.
Well, I guess if you had an Intellivision emulator, maybe even a Jag emulator on your Nintendo 64, the Power Glove would be kind of cool with that, because now you have the number pad on there.
Well, the number pad on there is to program this. Is to make this to control the settings of the Power Glove.
That's it? Oh my God.
Yeah. It's because you have to program, there's different codes for what the motions of the Power Glove do. So for for Mike Tyson's Punch Out, if you want, when you throw a right jab for Little Mac to throw a right jab, you have to change the settings of the Power Glove, because otherwise he duck to the right. You know what I mean? Move the Power Glove right would be considered as right. So you're actually it's actually to remap the inputs.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy. I can see the confusion.
It's been 30 some years since I've worn one. Yeah. I actually did own one as a kid, unfortunately. This is a strange one from Ars Technica. Modder recreates Game Boy Advance games using the audio from Crash Sounds. So I read this entire article, and I barely understand it. I don't know if you got into this one at all.
I saw it and didn't really understand why you would, again, a lot of things are very, are just good intellectual pursuits. I don't know why this is better than using a traditional cartridge dumper. Maybe it isn't. It's just, I think I can do it. Kind of exercise.
So from what I understand from it, this guy spent many hours, well, his GBA spent many hours crashing games and recording what happens with the audio during the crash. And then his app is now 99.979% accurate at guessing which game was being played based on the audio happening when it crashed. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So, if any of you ever need that, there's a link to his GitHub somewhere in this Ars Technica article. But yeah, there you go. And now in Doom running on things, I don't think we'll ever beat this one. Doom can now run on bacteria.
Yeah, it's in a sense. I mean, the code isn't running, right?
It's kind of being displayed with an array of bacteria, right?
Yes, it's being displayed, which is neat. So there's other Doom mods like this where like the hardware isn't running Doom, but you're running the picture. You're running Doom on some like other computer, and then pumping the picture out through, some device that couldn't run Doom.
That's kind of like Doom running in the CPU monitor in Windows. Remember that?
Yeah,
one?
right,
Yeah.
something like that, exactly.
Yeah, so that happened. It's a 32 by 48 array, and it takes it would take 600 years to get all the way through the game. It takes 8 hours and 20 minutes to get to the starting state of Doom. So there you go. There's better ways of playing that, probably. And Atari trademarked Rogue, a 44-year-old game that it did not make. I don't know what they're going to get from this because only people our age who are really nerdy, not like normal people our age, know what Rogue is. You know what I mean? That's like purchasing, the IP for like, I don't know, one of those jet fighter games from the Apple II where it's just like, B-17 bomber. That's not really like no one cares about that IP. Just make a different bomber game.
Yeah.
You can make a different Rogue game. Like, it's fine. I wonder how much they paid for it though. Oh no, they didn't even pay for it. This just says they're trying to trademark it. So I was speculating that they got the IP, but who knows? It says that Bridgestone is the company that had it. So yeah, they must have purchased that. Now it's in their catalog. And the last thing was Ys, which we already talked about.
Yep.
And we do have a topic this episode. I love old Funcoland price charts, and I was able to upload one that I acquired from somebody to archive.org. I did it manually, not with a Python script. So there's a link to it in our show notes. So you should hit pause now, rethink your life about why you're listening to this podcast. But also, when you come back, have this open and read through this and get sad about how cheap everything is. This is from September 2000, I want to say.
Yeah, it doesn't say the year, it says September, and the 2000 you just have to imply based on what's being sold.
And this is 4 pages. So we're on page 1, which starts out with a $70 PlayStation, and then it goes into N64 and some Dreamcast stuff.
Yeah, first of all, look, let me just give you the history of these scans. Like, I scanned these, I don't even remember how long time ago, and I wasn't happy with the quality. And you'll notice there's like the paper quality is kind of bad, and then there's like writing, and it's like weirdly yellow in some spots. Like, I was like, oh, this is ugly. I'm not going to post this on my website. So I instead uploaded it to, I don't know if these sites are still around anymore, but I used to have accounts on something called Facebook and Google+. I don't remember if they're still around. and I posted these scans there, just like, here's some stuff I scanned, I don't, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they have been reposted on other places at this point. I didn't put my name on them or anything because I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had mentioned that you found some scans, but they had like writing on them. I'm like, oh, I wonder if those are the ones I posted like 10 or more years ago.
No, they were much worse than this. And it's funny.
Okay.
So, want to give a brief history of what Funcoland is and what these catalogs are?
Yeah. So especially if you're outside of the U.S. and even in the U.S., I don't know how far and wide Funcoland was. But Funcoland was the first like major chain to do game trade-ins. I have a hard time remembering if they even ever sold new games or if they maybe sold new games later in their lifespan. But the idea of Funcoland is you would trade a game in for like a nickel and then they would sell it for $5.
It was crazy. It was so sad. Way worse than GameStop, and that's saying a lot.
It was, yeah. And they built out a number of locations. There were, I lived in the Chicago area. There were plenty. I can think of 3 locations off the top of my head. I don't know how wide they were in other parts of the country. If you're in Rhineland or Wisconsin, you probably didn't have a Funcoland. I don't know. And then they would have price sheets, which was just these plain, I'll say black and white. It's actually more like blue and white.
On like
pages.
newspaper.
Yeah, that were just sheets of paper with the prices at that time. All prices subject to change, of course.
But they're giant and thin. Like they're so that's also why they didn't scan well. And yeah, they're so big. There's no good place to keep them.
Well, yeah, and it's really small type because obviously they're trying to keep it to 4 pages or less, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So that font, like, I had to zoom these in a lot. Let's just say.
Me too. Yeah, but they would
I
give
got
these
my
away.
glasses on. I got a magnifying glass over here. Like, this is small type.
And they would give these away. You could just walk into a Funcoland and grab one. Yeah,
they were all over the place. And this doesn't mean your local store had these games. It meant if you went to your local store, you could buy the game for this price.
Yep. And all games come with a 90-day replacement warranty, which is not bad.
And they, I don't know if you have any of these. Do you have any Nintendo games that have the Funcoland sleeve?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, well, I'll grab one so you can see what they look like. Hold on. All right, so I have them in 2 different colors. I have red and green. So these are just cardboard sleeves that replace the sleeve for a Nintendo game. I don't think they use them forever. The game's here, and I don't remember buying these from Funcoland, but I've got them at a yard sale, so maybe someone else did. It was Knight Rider.
Wow.
And, Guerrilla War are the games I have here in Funcoland sleeves.
I don't remember ever seeing those sleeves before. And I was in Funcoland a lot.
I'm thinking they probably, at the beginning, used them as like a... Let's see. So Knight Rider in this catalog is $1.49. And Guerrilla War is, $3.99. Okay. So that's how much someone probably paid for these. I'm pretty sure I got both these at a yard sale. And I think they stopped using these sleeves after a while because it's just extra cost. And people maybe didn't really care if they got this cheap cardboard sleeve to go along with the game. And I don't think they ever did an equivalent for Super Nintendo games because remember those used to have a little sleeve. So it's anyway, so the history of the store is eventually they got merged into the chain that is GameStop today.
Yeah. Mine is currently against GameStop.
Yeah. So the Funcolands I know, one is closed for sure. One is a GameStop. And the third one I'm thinking of was, I believe that one's closed now too. There's still there's a really high concentration of GameStops in my area. So,
do you have any for page 1? Do you have any like notes about the PlayStation?
Yeah, my notes are kind of all over the place.
Okay.
Where are my notes? I think we actually I think we actually noticed a few of the same.
Yeah.
So, I said the PlayStation and N64 prices aren't great. is
No.
not the greatest, most observant thing ever, but they really aren't. So sports titles, like the latest version of Madden is $40.
Yeah, I think you had to wait one more generation for those two systems to go down.
I think so too. Yeah, I didn't really see anything on this PlayStation list where I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta get that. Like Final Fantasy VII being down to $16.99 is probably all right. I bought it new for like way less, for about that price, but like, yeah, that's okay. Considering what you see other old RPGs go for, that's actually kind of a bargain in this catalog.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, the PlayStation prices, I mean, they're better than new, but they're not great. Nintendo 64, like you said, not great.
Not
And
great.
on all the pages, each section is the games and then the accessories of the games. So on each one, I put that memory cards and cases, like a case, I like a carrying case or a storage case for your console. They're crazy cheap. Those things are hot collector's items now. So like, a $7 N64 case now would go for at least 10 times that. At least. And those Nintendo 64 memory cards, the 4 meg upgrades, those are expensive now. And
Really?
they're like giving them away here. Yeah.
And there's not just like a SD solution you can buy on Alibaba or something for that?
Oh, I don't think so, but there might be. There might be like some aftermarket new thing.
So the thing that I found amusing here, so there's two games here. NBA Courtside 2 featuring Kobe is $34.99.
For PlayStation 1?
No, for N64.
N64. Okay.
And WX Xena the Warrior Princess is $24.99. Okay. And I bring that up because one of the Funcolands I'm thinking of, one of the last times I went in there, this is in like the 2010s, so it was probably right around 2010. They had a bin that said Nintendo 64 games, buy one, get two free. But literally those were the only two games they had, and they were like 25 cents a piece.
Nice. So those did not gain their value over time.
They did not, no. And they could be perfectly good games. They're just apparently games nobody wants.
Yeah. I didn't have much else on Nintendo 64 or PlayStation, I don't think.
Or was it Kobe Bryant and NBA Courtside I saw? There's two different Kobe Bryant branded basketball games at this point.
Another all-around prices in this catalog that I noted is that there were a lot of wrestling games back then.
There were, yeah. I mean, you're coming off. This is the very end of the era referred to as the Monday Night War, end of 2000. At this point, WCW is kind of spiraling into oblivion. But you're coming off what was the hottest era of pro wrestling. So yeah, I mean, like I see for PlayStation, WCW Mayhem, WCW Nitro, WCW versus the World.
I don't think the W
WCW
section is as big now as it used to be.
Oh yeah,
in game catalogs.
Yeah. Yeah, the W section is two, there's ECW games, there's on PlayStation. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 WCW branded games and 1, 2, 3, there's 5 WWF branded games.
Jeez. And that's on this one page.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Is it okay if we move on to Dreamcast?
Yeah.
Which I noted that this is easily the worst year to get Dreamcast games.
Yes, and I wrote yes with multiple exclamation points after that.
Because 2 years after that, they were giving them away.
Basically,
which
yeah.
is when I got mine.
These are not, I mean, they're just not good. They're just not good prices, man.
Yeah, a new Dreamcast console costs $120. A year after that, year and a half after that, I got mine new for $35.
Yeah, not.
And all the games are still $30-$40. But yeah, this is 2000. Like the Dreamcast is
2000.
hot.
I mean, the only things under 20, and again, I'm calling 1999 as being under 20, are TNN Motorsports Hardcore Heat.
Okay.
Tricycle.
Sounds fun.
Virtual Fighter 3TB. What's 3TB?
I do not know.
Arrow Wings, Armada. Yeah. Oh, the cheapest thing. Okay, so Carrier is down to like $15. Elemental Gimmick Gear is $15. But yeah, most of this stuff is just still high. Really, really high.
Yeah, yeah. And then moving on, I think a lot of our notes are on the Nintendo Entertainment System, which you could get for $35 with 2 controllers.
Yeah.
I wrote that if you walked into Funcoland September 2000 with $100, you could easily walk away with about 105 NES games.
Yeah, there's a lot of games under $1. Definitely a lot under $2. I was kind of looking at games that are $2 or under that are actually good games.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of a list. This is my incomplete list. I have baseball. That was under $2. Breakthrough. Crash Dummies, kind of a late release, but is fairly good. Dr. Chaos, a game we recently reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Golgol 13. NES Open. The original RBI Baseball. Seacross. This one blew me away. Solstice was 79 cents. And that was considered like a premier game at some point.
Yeah.
You know. And Vice Project Doom.
I don't think I know that one.
Yeah, that one is not, again, it's not like awesome, but it's $1.29 in this catalog. You know, Vindicators is 79 cents. Like Vindicators, okay, it's worth 79 cents, fine.
If you want Mario Duck Hunt, that's 9 cents.
9, yeah.
And regular Mario, which is actually pretty rare now, I mean, much more rare than Mario Duck Hunt, is, $1.20. It's just crazy how many games you could go. You know, September 2000, I was spending all my money on going to concerts and bars and talking to girls and stuff. But it'd be a lot cooler if I just used some of that money, just a fraction of it, to have every single Nintendo game.
I do like when they list controllers here. NES Joystick Other. So if they have NES Joystick Advantage, $3.99. NES Joystick Other, 39 cents.
So that's all the Mad Catz ones?
It's any of the off-brand ones. Now, again, the big caveat here is it's not like your average Funcoland store had all these games.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect they didn't. Like, I wonder how many of these games were really, truly in stock at the average location.
But they had a lot of Nintendo games at this time, though. A lot.
Yes, absolutely they did, yeah. Yeah. I don't know, like, I put a note in here, like, the last time I went up to the... last time I went to the GameStop in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. That was in 2021. The location has since closed, leaving Rhinelander with 0 video game stores now. But in 2021, I am not joking, they still had in stock used Dreamcast games there.
Wow.
Because it's Rhinelander, Wisconsin.
Wow, yeah.
And the people going to that store, like, it's not a big town. People obviously can play video games in a small town. But a lot of their business, I think, probably why they closed, is because a lot of their business, I think, was tourists who, oh, you're in town and your kid needs a new DS game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that was probably a lot of their business. And, you know, a couple of years of pandemic, and they probably... Although the Rhinelander is a kind of town you would go to because, you know, you could be out in the woods and away from, you know, from where, you're out away from people. Like,
you could be a digital nomad.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyhow, that location didn't survive. So it meant that, like, GameStop, like, in a technical sense, GameStop still sold used Dreamcast games in 2021.
Yeah.
In a very technical sense, they did. But you had to go to a store in northern Wisconsin to actually buy the games.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why I wonder if the 79 cent Solstice, if you had an NES in 2000 and it was still hooked up and you saw Solstice for 79 cents, you're probably going to buy it.
Yeah, if you didn't have it, totally, yeah.
You know, it's a game you can finish in, like, I know how to play it, the game's like 5 minutes long. It's like Dark Castles, I think, is the game I'm thinking of.
But
like if you know what to do, it's a short game, but it looks really cool and it was kind of a groundbreaking game on the system, I thought.
not every game is cheap on here, though. I mean,
no,
relative.
there are a couple. Final Fantasy's $25. Flintstones 2 is $19.99. This is actually like mathematically one of the. I don't know why I said mathematically there. It is one of the rarest games. Flintstones 2 is one of like the top 5 rarest games on the NES.
All the Mega Mans 1 through 6 are about $20, so they're already 20x more than the other games.
Yeah.
Little Samson 17, I think.
Yeah, and that's maybe not top 5 rare. It's pretty rare. I'm sure they list like stadium events on here, even though I'm sure that they never had a single copy of it.
Yeah, I'm looking now.
Yeah, stadium events $4.99. Well, they never had a copy of stadium events.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they can make up any number they want. They didn't have it.
Super Nintendo for $30, right?
Yeah, it seems kind of high for that time, but
it's more expensive than a Nintendo. Kind of weird.
No, it's cheap. It's $5. I thought it was cheaper than the Nintendo. It's $5 cheaper than.
Oh, sorry.
Nintendo.
Again, I needed to zoom in more. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, we can't stress enough how small the type in these are.
I didn't really have many Super Nintendo notes, I don't think.
Yeah, I wrote down for like RPGs or action RPGs, you can get Robotrek for $9.99. That's a very good RPG. Ys 3 for $4.99. This is not a especially good version of Ys 3, but $4.99 is pretty cheap, and I believe cheaper than it goes for today. But the Final Fantasy games, so Secret of Mana, which again is not Final Fantasy, $50. Final Fantasy 3, which is $6.50, and the I'll go and say inferior Final Fantasy 2, which is Final Fantasy 4, is $60 in here.
That is a lot of money, but compared to now,
for loose copies of the, I mean they've just been remade so many times that if you want to play Final Fantasy 4 or 6, you can do it for a lot less than that now.
Yeah, if you have Steam or a Switch or pretty much any system.
Or any system.
Yes.
Or a Game Boy or a Nintendo DS or
MAME.
Or literally any game console made in the past 20 years, you can play those games.
Yeah, yeah. I did think on the next page, the weirdest thing for me was Game Boy. The regular, old school, original Game Boy.
You don't think that it's weird that whoever owned this catalog highlighted that they really wanted Acme Animation Factory for Super Nintendo?
I figured they crossed it out.
No, they drew an arrow.
Oh,
they have an arrow pointing to that game and to Terminator 2 Arcade. So whoever had this catalog had some range.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, they crossed off some Game Boy games. So this is why I didn't post this, because it looks awful.
Maybe those are the games they already own. I don't know.
Or they were out of stock. I wonder if they called their Funcoland location. Like, yeah, can you tell me which games you have in stock? Because they're on the A's here.
Yeah, and finally they just hung up.
And they hung up, yeah. But no, Game Boy games don't strike me as being a really great deal either. Part of it is, eventually, like, other stores, Electronics Boutique, for example, would start taking in trade-ins, but they never took Game Boy or Game Gear trade-ins. So I'm wondering if Funcoland, they sell kind of a monopoly on that space, so they could, charge you $24.99 for Skate or Die 2 on the Game Boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the Mega Man, $39.99 for most of the Mega Man games.
Yeah, most of these games are between like $15 to $25, some lower, some higher. But for a Game Boy game and $30 for a Game Boy, I don't know. That just seems like in 2000, that's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a new Game Boy was like $50 at this point.
I think for me, especially at that time, I felt that portable systems were lesser than, CRT systems, and So I don't know. I it was always like I should just have a few games for this for when I travel. I don't need to collect for the system, but these are more expensive than Super Nintendo games and system. It's same price as Super Nintendo. You think that's weird, or am I?
I do, and again, I think it's because they didn't have competition.
Yeah,
for these. I think they're the only person selling used Game Boy games, so they can charge whatever they feel like.
Let's see. Did I have any? Oh yeah. Do you want some used Game Boy headphones?
No, I do not.
I seriously almost threw up when I read that that's what they were selling. I'm trying to find them right now to see the price for used.
$1.79 for used Game Boy headphones.
Not worth it. Oh, you are gonna get an ear infection with that.
Well, yeah, yeah. But the 4-player adapter is 19 cents if they have it in stock.
That's kind of cool.
It works with like one game.
And then a Sega Genesis for $17, and then most of the games are 5 or under.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a good bargain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have some stuff. Populous is like 99 cents. That doesn't work on like every version of Genesis hardware, but whatever. A lot of cheap games. I mean, even like role playing wise, like the Phantasy Star games are more expensive than the average game, but they aren't priced like the Final Fantasy games. And a lot of the launch titles, stuff like Turrican, 99 cents. Truxton, $1.99.
Joe Montana 3, 9 cents.
Yeah, I like the Joe Montana games are good, man.
Mm-hmm.
I will defend those. Yeah, I mean, anything else like a launch title is Altered Beast is like $7, which seems kind of high, but because it was like a pack in. But a lot of the other early stuff is $1.
Yeah, I'm going through these. I mean, you could have walked out with so many Genesis games. Another note I made about this whole thing is that when I read about the first EverDrive when it came out, I think it was the Genesis one that I read about first. I immediately thought like, oh, all retro carts are going to crash in price. No, that did not happen.
See, a theme park is still strangely $30 in here.
That's weird.
That's kind of an odd one. Sports games, of course, are the cheapest, and they still are. I mean, those have not gone back up in value at all.
But controllers for $3.
Yeah, shooters and sports games seem to be the cheapest things in here.
Want to move to Saturn? That was a weird sentence.
I forgot they carried. Yeah.
$30. So you could either get an original Game Boy or a Saturn. That's nuts.
Yeah, I'll probably take. Again, the Game Boy, there's a good chance someone used that on the toilet
while wearing headphones. Yeah.
While wearing headphones. Yeah. And the Saturn. I mean, maybe the controller was, but you can get a different controller. It's unlikely someone took the entire Saturn on the toilet with that.
Yeah.
We can all agree on that.
But $30 for Saturn, and most games are about $5 if I'm doing some averages here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of them are a little more, but under 10, I would say. I would say under 10 is the average price. There's a lot of $7.99s, and most of this stuff is. I think I wrote that some of it seemed a little off, but overall, I think the Saturn prices are pretty fair.
I mean, just thinking about their prices now, I mean, they've gone up 100x, some of them, at least 10x on most of them.
Some of them, yeah. I mean, one like the most expensive one, I believe, in this one is Panzer Dragoon Saga, which they have at $50, which is still kind of a relative bargain. It's $200-$300 game.
Mm-hmm.
Shining Force 3 is $60, so it costs a little bit more, but I don't know, you can get a pretty decent number of games for a few bucks here.
For sure. Again, if you walked in with $100 and you wanted a Saturn, some games, you were going to walk out with a nice stack.
You could walk out with a Saturn, one really good game, and 3 kind of games.
Yeah. That's pretty much the review of the Saturn's whole history, huh?
Yeah. I'm sort of looking to see if there's anything on here I would really want at this point, but Clockwork Knight, yeah, again, the launch titles are the things that are cheapest. Those are all, $6 to $8.
Virtuon for $15
bad.
plus, all the Virtua games. And then Game Gear. You said EB Games didn't do Game Gear either?
Didn't do Game Gear either, no. And you can kind of tell because these Game Gear prices, they seem, I'd say on average, they seem lower than Game Boy, but they still seem a little high for what's...
A lot of them are half the price as Game Boy games.
A lot of them, yeah. It just depends. Sometimes the Game Boy version is better than the Game Gear version because it's more fun.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Well, even though the screens were relatively the same size, it always feel like on Game Boy they used the area better, where you have games like Sonic on Game Gear where you have no idea what you're running into,
Yeah, that's one you kind of have to play in an emulator where you can play with the screen a little bit. But those, like, again, the games you've heard of are like, $15 to $20 in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I keep forgetting how big the Game Gear catalog is.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've bought so many games for like $1 or $2 over the years. I have just I have an organizer here with just like, I'm amazed at how many games I own sometimes. When I go and I'm like, I'm just going to do like a blind pull. I'm going to blind pull a Game Gear game and put it in the analog pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just surprised what comes up. I'm just like, oh, I didn't know I had Streets of Rage, or how much is Chicago Syndicate. This is interesting. $249. That's a spin-off of Eternal Champions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is worth more than $249. That's really not a bad game. I think people just hadn't heard of it or something.
I have to squint here. Are there any used Game Gear headphones? I don't.
Well, Game Gear had a regular headphone jack. Well, no, so did the Game Boy too, though, didn't it?
Yeah, but Game Boy came with headphones because they wanted you to hear that stereo.
Yeah, it does have the TV tuner for like $45.
Nice.
I like the last up here. DVD movies, all DVD movies, $14.99.
Yeah, that's how they end. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, most like estate or garage sales I go to, for $14.99, I can get a milk crate filled with DVDs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right now is peak cheap DVD time, man. I've actually been hoarding some DVDs recently, like TV series or stuff that I like, because at some point I'm gonna set up a Android streaming box.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there are some shows I like where it's like, oh, is that on streaming? Well, yeah. I mean, season 1 is on Netflix, and season 2 is on Peacock, and season 3 is on Columbia Plus or whatever it's called.
Oh, so you could rip them and just stream them locally?
Yeah. Why deal with all this nonsense? If I want to watch X-Files is all on Hulu at this point, so that at least works. Not the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, not the movies. Just the main series. But there's a lot of series where it's just kind of weird to try and figure out how you can watch them, or they're just on a different service. Like you start streaming it, a show, and you're like, this show's pretty good, and then all of a sudden it's on a different service you don't have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I could build a pretty decent library for not much money until like they have a comeback like LPs. Like some future group of hipsters are going to be like, oh, DVDs are the best thing ever.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely going to happen because there's a lost art of special features, that doesn't exist in streaming services really,
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was funny is like, I'm a big horror movie fan, especially around Halloween. I like to watch, bad horror movies.
Yeah.
And my daughter and I watched the Chucky TV series, but she'd never seen the movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to watch like the Chucky movie streaming, that's one where it's like, that's 6 different streaming services.
Yes.
Like there's just no way to do it. But I can go on Walmart.com and get a box with, a DVD set with all the movies for $4.99.
Mm-hmm. And have them forever.
Yes. So I'm like, $4.99 for all of them. Or I buy some streaming service called Shudder or Screamer.
Yeah,
what is
Shudder. Yeah. That's pretty high class, actually.
I'm sure it is, but it's where it's like, it only has the good movies from like horror franchises. Like it'll have Friday the 13th Part 1 or Part 4, but then like Part 5 or 9 you'll have on Peacock or something.
Yeah, you don't have Jason in Space. You don't have Critter 6.
Right.
You know.
But again, if you want to watch an entire series, or if for whatever reason you like Jason in Space, and I'll defend it, that's actually an awesome movie.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do it. You can't do it with one service. It's awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you.
So I'm looking like at one of these like sub 100. Like I found out for $100 you can get like an Android streaming box and a 1 terabyte drive.
I actually looked at making Samsung and LG TV apps to see how easy it would be, because I was like, if I rip my Blu-rays and DVDs and leave them, in an SMB share or something, and I could just make my own app that just not even streams it. That's the wrong word, but VLC will play that stuff.
Yeah, it's a VLC. Anything that can play VLC player, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, I could have all the special features, and it could all be right here. I can make a nice menu that just scans the files of the
yeah,
ISOs.
I know we're getting off topic, and as I get closer to not podcasting anymore, I'm going to get more off topic than ever.
And it's fine. Yeah.
Because my level of caring is about what people think is going to decline rapidly. By the last episode, I'll just be like sharing crock pot recipes or something.
Yes.
So, other interests that I have outside of gaming. But yeah, if you just rip the DVD, I'm not talking about like rip it to MP4 or something. I mean, literally rip it to an ISO file. Mm-hmm. You can just open that in VLC player.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. And then it just becomes, I have to format the drive EXT or NTFS because FAT32 can't store a file that big. Mm-hmm. And I just have to have a streaming box, a streaming device that can run VLC player, right, and support either EXT or NTFS file systems.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. That is an awesome idea. I like it. And
and I have one unused Raspberry Pi. I can throw like 4 64 gig. I can throw 1 terabyte. I'm starting smaller just because like I'm not gonna load everything all at once, but like also because I have a box like of 64 gig USB sticks in a drawer here. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever just done that where like one day you can't find a USB drive, so you just order a box of like 10 on Amazon.
Yeah, they're so cheap now. Yeah.
So I'm like, what am I gonna do with all these drives now? And like, I could just create a share somewhere, a little SMB share, and like you said, and connect a device to it and stream, do whatever.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea.
Yeah, little entertainment center in my own house.
Yeah, I love it. And that's Funcoland.
It's Funcoland. Yeah, where you can get physical games that they can't take away from you.
Yes.
Look, if Nintendo could, they would send hired goons out to round up your old games. I'm utterly convinced if they thought they could get away with that, they would.
Well, remember they said it wasn't legal to copy Nintendo manuals, and that's how they tried to get Blockbuster to stop renting their games.
Yeah.
Like, they'll do whatever they can to get you to stop, to do it their way.
But whoever owns the IP for Knight Rider, come and take this card for my...
Yeah. Yes.
Come and take it. Yeah.
Well, want to get into some Game Club?
Yeah, we're way over time, so we should do that. What did we play? Impossible Mission. That was your pick.
So yeah, Impossible Mission was mine. I played the C64 version on the Evercade. It came in I think it was just an Epix cart. I really like the Evercade now. It really grew on me because it's so simple to play old 64 games and stuff like that on it. So I do recommend it. This game came out in North America in September 1984. And you play a spy that is trying to get through this building by solving puzzles and not being zapped by robots and some big flying black thing. And there's definitely elevator action. Like you go through like tubes, like horizontal tubes and vertical elevators to get to bigger rooms that have those robots and stuff I talked about that you go up to and get puzzle pieces from. And after a while, you can also stop the robots in the room for a certain amount of time to get to the other parts. And eventually, you put all these puzzles together to open up the door to, whoever the bad guy is. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. Professor Elvin Adam Bender.
Mm-hmm.
He's been tampering with national security computers. Anyway, this game, it's gosh, I really enjoy this game. I'd never played it before. Other than 64, it came out on Acorn, Amstrad, Apple II, 7800, BBC, Master System, and ZX Spectrum. And there's 36 puzzle pieces in total. And I was good at finding the puzzle pieces and getting around. It was actually putting them together where I don't think I'm smart enough, or maybe I missed a part in the manual. And another big part of this game is you have 6 hours to complete the game. In the game hours, I don't know if it's actually 6 hours. I wasn't paying that close attention. But anytime you die, it's a one-hit death. You lose 10 minutes on that timer. So pretty cool mechanic. The gameplay I really liked, meaning how the dude runs around. The jumping is a bit like Prince of Persia, where you kind of have to get used to. You kind of have to, press jump before you actually mean to. And also when you're doing platforming, you can only jump a certain distance. It's like the exact same distance each time, which I thought was strange. Took me a while to get used to. So a lot of platforms you almost never hit. You jump right over them to the next one. The speech synthesis in this game was great. In the beginning, the scary, evil Dr. Adam Bender actually talks to you through speech synthesis, and it sounds really cool and scary. And he does that at the end too. Spoilers. But I really like this game. I liked it more than I thought, and it makes me want to play my Evercade more. What did you play this on and think about it?
So I played it on the Atari 7800 because if I ever have a choice to play a multi-platform game on the 7800, I will pretty much always pick it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know why. I just like the 7800, I guess. And I tried it after my Game Club game. I picked mine because I thought it was similar to this game, and they really are. Structurally, they're very similar games. I guess I'll get into that later. I think I wrote the title is extremely accurate. I can't really imagine ever finishing this game. I died a lot.
Yeah, you really have to
turn the
get used
robots
to it.
off. Like second room in the game, there's some robot chasing me down that I could not figure out what to do about. So I think it's an interesting concept, but man, they got to crank the difficulty down. And maybe the C64 version is better.
Possibly. I didn't look at the 7800 port.
Yeah, I was just like, it was just like enter screen, die. That was my experience with that game.
You do. I did try to play the Master System port, but apparently it never got released in North America.
Okay. So was it in Europe or Brazil or something?
It must be Europe because it was published by US Gold. So that tracks, right?
Yeah.
What about your game, Zillion?
So yeah, I played Zillion, and like I said, these are very similar games. So each game is sort of you're in a building with an elevator, and the elevator goes to different rooms, obviously, as elevators do. And each room is like a self-contained puzzle. Like there's a computer and some codes you have to figure out. And the codes might open doors, or they might disable things, or they might do something else. And Zillion works exactly the same way Impossible Mission does.
Yes.
You go in a room, you solve the puzzle, you go to the next room. And Zillion, there's like guards, but they're all really dumb. You can duck. If you duck it on the ground and shoot, pretty much none of them ever figure that out. It struck me as being more like Montezuma's Revenge than I remembered. Montezuma's Revenge is essentially the same concept. It's just you go from room to room, and each room is a self-contained puzzle. Montezuma's Revenge, you have to backtrack a lot more. In Zillion, there's really not backtracking until the end. I watched a speed run, so there's two styles of speed run, with and without glitches. And I never made it far enough into the game to realize that it ends a lot like Metroid. So I guess spoiler alert for Zillion and Metroid. After you defeat the final enemy, there's a timer. The base is going to explode, and you have to get out. Did you make it that far into a video?
No. I thought you were going to say you're in a bikini.
No, that is not. Not in the Zillion ending, at least. But yeah, you have to then like haul out of the building as fast as you can after defeating the last enemy.
Did you make it that far?
No, I did not. But after watching the speedrun, I think I could.
Cool.
The speedrun made the game look a lot easier than I remember. I played it. I played 5-10 minutes of it on the Master System, enough to kind of get the gist of the game and remember it. The soundtrack is really good. I remember there were a few like overclocked remixes for this game, and it's easy to see why. It's got some catchy music. So what did you think here? Sorry, I have the speedrun open right now.
That's what I put in mind, that the intro was amazing. Really cool graphical intro. The graphics, art, and sound were great. The story was good enough. Other than the jumping was kind of weird till you got used to it. But I did like the game mechanics. I didn't get that far. I am curious about the sequel. Did you ever play that?
No, I have not. I think that's kind of a rare game too.
Probably. And then one thing I noted while I was researching this game a bit is that this is in the Fantasy Zone universe. I guess Opa Opa is in this. So,
okay.
Do you think Sega is going to do a Nintendo and make like a Final Fantasy universe TV series or movie?
Unlikely.
Yeah. But that really did surprise me, though. I had no idea. I do think I liked Impossible Mission a little bit better, but I did like Zillion.
Yeah, it's fair. I think they're both. Yeah, to me, they're just the same game.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
they're the same game. One's a little bit harder than the other.
What?
That's the biggest difference.
So, what was the number one game on your Game Club retirement list that you had to pick?
I want to play. This is actually literally where I looked at all the games on my list. This is the one I said I really want to go back and play this the most, and that is E.T. for Atari 2600. Specifically the fixed version, as they call it.
Yeah. We'll talk next time between the different versions.
I might have to change the link to the fixed version because now Chrome is saying it won't let me connect to the site.
Nice.
Well, this is the problem. If your site, even if you have a static, so the site that posted the fixed version of ET for 2600, it's just a static HTML site. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have SSL enabled because...
Oh, yeah, because there's no
Why
reason.
would you need SSL enabled for a static... My personal site I run and put articles on, that's a static HTML site. But I enabled SSL because I knew, like, Chrome won't let you connect to the site if it doesn't have SSL.
Yeah, it's not like you're sending bank information to it.
You're not sending any information. I literally don't have I literally don't run a server. It's literally static HTML on a CloudFront distribution, right? Like I couldn't take data from you if I tried. But it's SSL, latest version. Probably upgraded to TLS 1.3 soon. All that stuff.
Well, I'm going to do Mario 64. Somehow we haven't done that one yet.
Yeah, I'm surprised we've never done that. That was not on my list, luckily. So,
well, if our listeners play E.T. on the 2600, Mario 64, Zillion, Impossible Mission, if you have any Funcoland memories, stories, if you got an ear infection from a used Game Boy headset, if you bought any trademarks from Atari, I'm trying to think what else we talked about. If you fixed the SNES flaw, or if I got it so wrong that you want to correct me, please email us. email@retrogameclub.net. That is email@retrogameclub.net. And by the way, when we move, when I move, I won't change our email address. It won't be .net.au. It'll just be .net still.
yes.
And we got a few emails here.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. Majors writes in. Talk about the Price is Wrong episode. I'm glad that aired. I didn't actually keep track to see when that went out. But he said it was fun, and of course, eBay is not the best way to go about finding deals. Suggest maybe we try Facebook Marketplace for a future one. Someone else will have to run that one. I don't have a Facebook account, but and something called Offer Up he recommends. I don't know that one.
No.
But related to that, he was happy to finally hear Zach on the show, and he even subbed to the MCU podcast. I'm gonna have to edit that because I don't know where my voice went. That he's putting out. This is. Can I admit I don't think I've ever seen an MCU movie.
You're probably better for it.
I saw the Wonder Woman movie. Is that MCU?
No, that's DC.
That's DC. Oh, there you go. And Batman's DC, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So then I guess I haven't. Podcast as a thing. Oh, this is about me. He also mentions turning 50 very soon. He also mentions how like on The Price is Wrong, we talked about, TikTok and video services, meaning maybe being a better place to distribute the stuff. Like, this has nothing to do with like what services are popular or how many people listen. I've never cared about any of that. So before, it's strictly I've been doing it for 15 years. I've kind of run the full circle of things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Prank gift boxes. I don't remember talking about those, but he sent us a couple examples. One of them I would actually buy. There's one here called Hatch Your Own Spiders Terrarium. Like, who doesn't want spiders in their yard?
Yeah.
We got a lot of mosquitoes, man. And then game stores in your area. That, okay, in his mall, I wish you would have sent me the mall name. He had a Babbage's for a long time, but a software center opened up in the early 90s before the merger. After the merger, they closed the older Babbage's and moved everyone to the newer software, etc., which eventually became a GameStop, but then it moved to another location. Mm-hmm. With an outside entrance so they could do midnight launches. Yeah, so at least that mall does not have the original locations. A couple, Daryl writes in just to say he made it to the end of the episode and say he's sorry that I'm signing off at some point. That's all right. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, going somewhere podcast-wise, but not off the earth or anything.
Yeah. Nate writes in that he got to the end of the episode, and he just kind of got into this podcast, so he's sorry to see you leaving kind of soon.
Yeah, well, but hey, there's 165 previous episodes to go back on.
And I'll keep it going.
Yeah, we don't... And yeah, I'm curious to see what you decide to do.
I'll keep something going.
Yeah.
But again, we have almost a year of talking together still, so...
Yeah, of all kinds. And I got a bunch of oddball games to talk about.
And Jim from the Pi Factory podcast writes in that he loves Zillion on the Sega Master System. He was able to beat it way back then. And he says, hint for the codes, each symbol is 1 through 0. I don't know if he meant 1 through 10, but just mirrored except for 8, I believe. This helped me remember the different codes for each room. And,
yeah, that's true. I forgot about to add that note. That is a good way to help remember what the different rooms are. The different codes, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. The codes for the rooms. And
Zach asked on social media to please tell us about your PC Engine, TurboGrafx, or PCFX memories. And let's see, Nate writes in that he remembers the PCFX, but only from gaming magazines, pretty much the same as TurboGrafx. He didn't know anyone that had one, saw one occasionally in a store. Someone else had some money one year and bought one on a whim, and then realized that all the games were in Japanese, so he ended up selling it. And yeah, that's pretty much the experience, right?
It is, yeah.
What else? Other people getting into all those with the power of the internet and ROMs. Let's see. Let's pick one more here. Eric from the Pacific Northwest, he's seen them at conventions. Seems like a lot of adult-themed games. Yeah.
became a it's yeah, kind of became a magnet for that.
Yeah, yeah. But there is an ODE for them now, so you can enjoy all those at home.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if this is a system if I could get past, obviously you can avoid buying certain games. So I guess I could avoid buying, games that I'm just not ever going to play. Yeah, it's not enough in English for me to get into this system, I don't think.
Exactly.
I mean, there's like essentially nothing in English. So, like, I'm all for learning new programming languages. I don't think I could learn a new language. I don't think I'm wired that way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you play any of these games, Mario 64 or E.T., please, again, email us. Email at retrogameclub.net.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah.